Hi, I'm Jeremy Pittman with EDF Action, the advocacy partner of the Environmental Defense Fund. Thank you for joining us. Whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook Live, we're excited to have you with us as we take a look at climate in the courts. Before we go to the courts, though, I want to take a minute to recognize what's happening in Ukraine. I know we're all hoping for a peaceful and just resolution and sending our thoughts to the people in Ukraine and to folks here with family and friends in the region or serving in the military at this critical moment. At EDF Action, we're building political power for climate action with online and on-the-ground organizing. I know many of you joining us today have been part of those efforts, working in the 2020 elections to elect climate champions and working since then to press for action in Congress. Thank you. I'm so excited about our special briefing this evening. We're going behind the scenes to look at West Virginia versus EPA, a critical case being heard next week at the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll have time for a few of your questions at the end of the program, so please put your questions directly in the comments wherever you're watching, either on Facebook or YouTube. Now, let's get to it. I'm thrilled to introduce my colleague, Karen Quimby. Karen is Director of Campaigns within EDF's Political Affairs Department. Karen is a former academic who has been now leading high-impact campaigns for many years in her role at EDF as National Field Director for Moms Clean Air Force and as Regional Field Director at the Human Rights Campaign. Karen is joining us today from Ojai, California. Welcome, Karen. Thank you.
Karen, I'm not hearing you. Are you muted? Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry. I was muted. And I want to thank Jeremy for the introduction. And it's my pleasure now to introduce our expert guest for today's program, Vicki Patton. Vicki has been with EDF for more than 20 years and currently serves as General Counsel, leading the organization's work on federal regulations and impact litigation. She manages a team of talented lawyers who are working every day to protect Americans' health and environment. In her time at EDF, she has been at the center of many of the most important developments in environmental law. Vicki joins us today from Boulder, Colorado. Vicki, I'm so excited to be in conversation with you and to learn more about this case. So let's get started. This case, West Virginia versus the Environmental Protection Agency, what is it about?
Karen, it's a privilege to be with you. So thank you so much for this conversation. This case is a broad challenge to EPA's authority to protect the American people from the climate pollution that's discharged from existing fossil fuel power plants, including coal plants. The stakes are large for a number of reasons, Karen. One is the power sector is one of the single largest sources of climate destabilizing pollution in our country and in the world. If you looked at kind of just the overall just massive pollution from the U.S. Power plants, it really is comparable to one of the largest emitters in the world. And we have solutions at hand to help address this pollution. At the same time, we create jobs. So this is an important moment where the highest court in our land is considering whether to undermine and constrain EPA's ability to tackle climate pollution from a major sources, and to do that in a way that hampers real progress at a time where we have viable solutions that create jobs, that strengthen our national security, and that are at hand and are cost effective.
Yeah, the case is called West Virginia versus EPA. Who else is siding with West Virginia in challenging these clean power plant rules?
The case is really being advanced aggressively by the coal industry. And what's really noteworthy here is that the regulated community, the sources that are regulated by EPA for their climate pollution are the owners of power plants. And those owners of power plants and those owners of power companies are going to be presenting argument in support of EPA's authority. They've submitted a brief in support of EPA's authority. And they're not alone. There are a number of major businesses that support EPA's authority that are some of the largest employers in our country, Karen, and leading health experts like the American Lung Association, the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and a number of national environmental groups that are all collaborating and working together to do all we can to protect EPA's authority to address a major source of harmful pollution.
And why would these power companies be on our side of this case?
Well, it's there's a lot of recognition right now in our country that there is broad public support for climate action. And so one of the reasons those power companies are before the highest court in the land saying we support EPA's authority to address climate pollution is because of all of the people who are part of this discussion right now. As people raise their voices and say we care about climate action, that has really important impacts in shaping public understanding and encouraging companies to be better stewards and to lead in taking climate action. So we need all of the people who are here and involved to continue all of the great work they're doing. It's also a reflection of the fact that we do have solutions at hand that are cost effective and that work. We have right now in our country, we can deploy, wind and solar at large scale with storage and deliver clean, cost effective electricity and create lots and lots of good jobs here in communities all across our country. And so it's a really important moment where the regulated community and the business community recognize both the imperative action and the opportunity for action.
Yeah, I mean it is remarkable that the tide has turned and the power companies are standing with us in many ways on this case. So the Supreme Court justices will hear oral arguments on Monday, February 28th, coming right up. Can you tell us what it's going to look like at the court that day, and who's going to be representing the EPA?
The court continues to be under a COVID protocol. So the Supreme Court itself will be very sparse. You'll have the justices there and then the attorneys who are presenting argument. The attorneys who will be presenting argument in support of EPA's authority include the Solicitor General of the United States, Elizabeth Prelogar, and that's the senior most official in the U.S. government who represents the U.S. government before the Supreme Court. And it reflects, I think, the significance and the importance of this action to the Biden administration and the Biden Justice Department and the Environmental Protection Agency. And then also an attorney who will be representing power companies supporting EPA's authority. And then lots and lots of briefs on our side that have made, I think, a compelling case in support of EPA's authority. And some really important sort of threshold questions that we'll be looking for the court to grapple with right at the outset of the case. And I'd love to talk about those.
Great. You want to talk about them now?
Let's do. So there's this, doctrine under, our law, rule of law, that is embedded in our Constitution. And the concept is pretty straightforward. And that is that our courts are supposed to decide like live disputes, real disputes where parties have been injured. And so the Constitution says that judges review cases or controversies, and that's the language. Well, here, there are no EPA pollution standards in effect that are being enforced or defended. And the administrator of EPA, Michael Regan, has been quite clear that he is not going to move forward with anything that has been done in the past. He's going to take a fresh look at this and move forward on a completely clean slate. So there's just nothing, this is all kind of hypothetical. And so that's called like an advisory opinion. And essentially we have this situation where the coal industry and a number of allied state attorneys general are asking the Supreme Court to hamper, to undermine EPA's authority to address climate pollution from power plants when there are no pollution standards that are actually in effect that the Supreme Court can review. That is a quintessential kind of advisory opinion, and that is prohibited by our Constitution. And so one of the arguments that the Justice Department has made, and that you'll hear, we anticipate from the Solicitor General on Monday, is to say the court should not be reviewing this at all. The court should dismiss the case and not reach the merits.
Do you have any sense of why the court took the case, if that's the fact, that there's no live reason to do so?
Sometimes the court, decides to review a case and grant a petition before really digging into kind of all of the facts. And so this could be one of those situations where the court didn't have a full understanding of the fact that, there really isn't a live case or controversy here. And so there are several times every Supreme Court term where the High Court dismisses cases as improvidently granted. We call those digs. And so one of the things that the U.S. government has urged is that the High Court dismiss this case as improvidently granted, wrongly granted. Now, it could be that, there are justices that just want to address and grapple with and the potential EPA's authority to address climate pollution under our nation's clean air laws and the issues that have been presented to them and raised by the coal industry. If the court agreed, would do really deep damage, and so that that's of very serious and urgent concern.
Indeed. I want to mention on the day of oral arguments on Monday, February 28th, that we're also holding a rally outside the court, or a gathering, and we'll have some speakers speaking. So if there are any viewers here listening, we invite you to join us in front of the court at 9 a.m. on February 28th and show support for climate action and for ensuring that the EPA maintains strong authority to regulate greenhouse gases. Vicki, moving on, do you have a sense of how things are going to play out based on the way that the court's taken up this case and the briefs that have already been filed?
There could be any number, a range of outcomes, and we'll be communicating with the public and with our members in real time as all of this is unfolding, and we really won't know until we hear formally from the court. So it's a lot of this will be kind of reading the tea leaves and trying to assess where the court is at based on comments that are made in oral argument, and that has its own kind of complications and is fraught. But it could be, Karen, range from a dismissal for lack of standing because the case is not really reviewable or because it's moot, and we believe that would be the proper outcome for the court. We're not alone in thinking that. Again, the Justice Department has argued that in a very compelling way, and a number of conservative legal scholars have really expressed serious surprise that the Supreme Court granted review in this case, given that it's really not truly a case or controversy. So that's one potential pathway, and it could range to an outcome that is profoundly damaging not only to EPA's authority to address climate pollution, but adopts some of the more really radical doctrines that are being advocated before the High Court by the coal industry and their allies, and doctrines that would do profound and lasting damage to EPA's authority to protect clean water, to ensure that the food we eat is safe, and that could affect a number of ways that are really vital in ensuring safeguards in American life. And so, we're doing everything we can to secure the best possible outcome we can. We've made what we believe are really strong arguments to the High Court, and then there's just a tremendous coalition of experts that have also shared their insights and their expertise with the High Court. All of the briefs are available on our website. If you search, our website, Supreme Court, climate pollution, you'll see all of the case resources or clean power, and you'll see that it's leading businesses, top climate scientists, leading public health experts and medical associations, all urging the court to not do damage to EPA's longstanding authority to protect the American people from harmful pollution.
I mean, the consequences you talk about are so far-reaching. It's almost unbelievable that we're having this conversation today. That these kinds of protections and the way in which the agency is functioned could be in peril. But this case is high profile because it's at the Supreme Court, but I've been seeing headlines about other climate-related cases in the courts as well. What else are you watching?
Yeah, a couple of items to share, and then I'd welcome feedback from others about what you all are seeing and what we should be keeping a close eye on. One recent decision that's been really unfortunate and disruptive is a federal district court decision out of the Western District of Louisiana. It's a bizarre ruling that would effectuate kind of a broad and sweeping prohibition on all parts of our government to protect people from climate pollution, and it's a sweeping injunction. And right now, public health officials at the Environmental Protection Agency, officials all across our government are trying to understand kind of the full scope of it. There've been a couple of major press reports about this decision, and a lot of legal experts across the spectrum who have sharply criticized the ruling. One of the things that's problematic about the ruling is that it was just a kind of a broad policy statement that led to this kind of sweeping injunction of a number of protections and safeguards. And judges, again, don't rule on broad policy statements. They take action on things that are really binding and enforceable. And that's not the case in this Western District of Louisiana dispute. And the breadth of the court's ruling has really been disruptive. There have been a number of press reports on, including a number of leading publications. And so keep an eye out on that one. And that's one we're watching very, very closely and trying to think about all of the ways that we can help ensure that the rule of law is really enforced, and this bizarre opinion doesn't do damage to urgent climate action.
Okay, well, we'll hope for good resolutions there as it moves through the process. So most EDF Action members and supporters are already concerned about climate and engaged in the political process. They're pressing President Biden and their members of Congress to take more urgent action to reduce climate pollution and accelerate the transition to a clean energy and transportation future. Should we be concerned that these lawsuits will slow us down even more? And what can folks do to make a difference?
We need all tools in the toolbox to address climate change with urgency, consistent with the science. And that means, we need action at scale. We need action that is urgent, and action that will be durable and lasting. The good news is that there are all sorts of solutions that we have that address climate pollution, that strengthen our national security. You think about the situation, the crisis, the tragedy unfolding in Ukraine, and there are clean energy solutions here in our own country that would not make us in any way dependent upon dictators in other parts of the world, and solutions that create jobs in all communities, no communities left behind. So, the things that we can do include encouraging policymakers to take action, and that's policymakers, national, state, local, making sure that, your voice is heard and about this case has high stakes, whether it's, sharing information on social media about this important case, letters to the editor, recognizing just the importance of the Supreme Court in affecting safeguards that are vital to American, life. President Biden will soon nominate a new Supreme Court justice, and that will be an important moment when a new justice will be subject to Senate confirmation. And this case just underscores how important it is to ensure that we have justices that adhere to the rule of law. And then voting climate, Karen, we just need to vote climate up and down the ballot. And then, finally, the Congress has been debating the potential for really important investments. These are investments that help our country, make big change in terms of supporting renewables and all of the job creation, supporting zero-emitting vehicles, where auto manufacturers right now in America are making big investments that are creating jobs in Michigan and Kentucky and Ohio and Tennessee. And how do we continue to create that, to support that innovation, to support those investments? And that's one of the many reasons we need Build Back Better, to get those investments and those incentives kind of across the finish line to help our country accelerate to clean energy that will help us tackle the climate crisis and create jobs.
Yeah, and so many of the advocates who are, I'm sure, joining us tonight have been working hard on trying to get the climate investments that were in the Build Back Better bill, $500 billion plus of climate investments over the finish line in the Senate. The House passed a version of that, of course, last year, and now we're working towards getting a bill that we can get the Senate on board with those climate investments. And in fact, that's a great segue to a time for us to take some action on this call. And then we're going to return to you, Vicki, to take questions from the audience. But before we do that, this is going to just take a few minutes. We're going to ask everyone to text ACT NOW to 52886 or visit the EDF website that's listed on your screen here, www.edfaction.org/ACT NOW. And email your senators about the importance of bold climate action. We want our U.S. senators to know that we need strong climate legislation. And go ahead and text that number or visit that website now and send a quick email to your senators in support of climate action and federal investments in clean energy, just what we were talking about. This is our time. This is our moment. This is our year that we've got to get these investments into law and out into our states, into our communities, so that we can support this growing movement of clean energy and clean transportation and so many other clean water, so many other priorities to move us towards 100% clean economy no later than 2050. So we'll take just a few more minutes for folks to do that. And we'll come right back to you, Vicki. Okay, probably everyone's had enough time to text that number and make your voices heard again with your elected representatives. You can hear my cat in the background. So I have some questions that are coming through from our audience, and I'll start with the first one here. You've said that the case at the Supreme Court is about the EPA's authority under the Clean Air Act. Some of us remember what it was like before the Clean Air Act. Could this case take us back to those times when there were no regulations?
The Clean Air Act has been a really great American success story, and something that I think all of us should be really, really proud of. It's one of the most important, environmental laws, in our country, and it's reduced pollution. It's saved lives. At the same time, our economy has grown and thrived, so it's just this great kind of American success story. This case is a major threat to our nation's clean air laws, and so it's one of the reasons that Environmental Defense Fund and many partners and allies across the environmental community, medical associations, public health organizations have shared their submitted legal briefs and expert analysis for consideration by the Supreme Court. These are really big stakes, and we have this statute that has delivered far-reaching, profound benefits for years in a way that has been vital to the American people. And at the same time, our economy has thrived and grown, and so we need this tool. It's super important.
I muted myself again. There's a case at the Supreme Court. Let's see that and you mentioned the case in Louisiana. Are both cases where environmental laws and regulations are being challenged? And do you think we're going to be on the defense all the time going forward, or are there opportunities to make gains in the courts as well?
Yeah. Both of these cases are instances where, environmental protections, climate protections are being challenged. At the same time, there's a body of, recent judicial decisions and a body of important case law in America that supports climate action, that supports clean air, clean water, public health protections. And, we need to make sure that we are also enforcing those laws. One of the reasons that this case before the Supreme Court is so important is because the coal industry and the other petitioners before the court are asking the court to adopt kind of this doctrine, doctrine of statutory interpretation that could do damage to many core environmental laws, and that would be with by the sweep of the pen of the Supreme Court and not through congressional action. And so it's one of the reasons we're so concerned about this case. We're so focused on this case. And of course, we all need to be ensuring that the statutes we have, federal statutes, state laws, are being offended and being enforced and properly carried out to protect communities, to protect people, to ensure that we're moving forward with climate action and core public health protections.
Yeah. So you've already talked about some of the ways people can help, which thank you. Do you have thoughts about some of the best organizations to donate to or volunteer for, or movies or documentaries or websites where people can be more informed or inspired? And of course, when movies, I think of Don't Look Up, which I think many people have seen these days. But thoughts about other ways people can get more informed and take action?
I think there's so many ways that we can all make a difference and contribute. And a lot of that depends on kind of your interests. There are really important ways to engage at the local level with state organizations, and then to participate in national organizations and national campaigns. One of the things that inspires me is just the opportunity to be in conversations with people who care. And so finding those opportunities to volunteer and be part of a community of people who are trying to help our country address the climate crisis is it can be challenging and also just really rewarding. And I feel an enormous privilege, Karen, to work at Environmental Defense Fund, in large part because there are many attorneys and scientists at Environmental Defense Fund who are, right out of law school or graduate school, and bring energy and perspective and commitment. And that's just an enormous privilege for me to have the opportunity to work with so many people who are so deeply committed to climate action, and doing it anchored in equity, really, focused on how do we do this in a way that ensures fairness for all, in terms of ensuring that no communities are left behind, and really thinking about solutions that work for all of America.
Yeah, and to add on to that, the ways in which people can get involved, you mentioned the local level. I know a lot of cities and counties are developing climate action plans, and if there's opportunities to find out what your city or county is doing, that's always a great way to get involved at the local level. Obviously, we at EDF focus a lot sometimes at the state, and then certainly at the federal level as well, in our advocacy and in our work, our policy work. So that's the advocates who are on this call, I know, have done an amazing amount of work, making their voices heard, and it's so critical at all levels of government for all elected representatives to know that we want climate action. And I'll just add another thought is that, the Congress did pass the bipartisan infrastructure law last year, and that's $1 trillion that is going out into the states and into localities now. And there are some significant climate investments in there. And so look for those opportunities as well, and how that money is coming down from the federal government through state agencies and to the local level. I know we're going to be working hard on trying to ensure that funding gets to communities that need it the most, and from rural communities to frontline communities that have been left behind in a lot of ways in the past. So we're excited to already have some significant climate investments coming from Congress, and hope now we need to get the big investments in the Build Back Better bill. Over the
billions of dollars in charging infrastructure that were part of the bipartisan infrastructure legislation that will make a big difference, Karen. And one other area where in this case, it'd be, there are a number of state attorneys general who have kind of taken sides in this case, and this is the stakes here are really, really important. And so there's a number of state attorneys general who are before the Supreme Court defending EPA's authority to protect the American people from climate pollution. And there's a number of state attorneys general who have allied with the coal industry, and we can provide that list. And if your attorney general is before the highest court in our land supporting EPA's authority to protect people from climate pollution, we should say thank you. We appreciate that. And if your Attorney General is allied with the coal industry, asking for just, really broad damage to EPA's ability to protect people and communities from harm, we should, you should be aware of that, and you should share your views with your elected official and encourage them not to be part of cases like this. It's really damaging.
Thank you, Vicki. And, just to conclude our conversation today, I just want to thank you for all your work over the years. And would you mind sharing a few thoughts about highlights from your career in environmental law as we conclude the program?
Well, I started my career at the Environmental Protection Agency like 1,000 years ago, right out of law school. And, it was my dream and my commitment to become an environmental attorney. And I just feel an enormous privilege each and every day to do the work I do with the people I do, Karen, with you and many other colleagues at Environmental Defense Fund. And we feel the urgency and the weight of the importance of addressing the climate crisis, and could not be more grateful to each of you for being part of this conversation, for your support. This is an all hands on deck moment to take action on climate consistent with the science. And we have the solutions. We have the ability to do it. And we need all of your continued engagement and leadership. So thank you to each of you.
Thank you again, Vicki. And I just want to say before Jeremy finishes up our webinar that you're my hero. And I just, it's just a joy to work with you. And thank you so much.
It's a privilege.
Thank you, Vicki and Karen, for such a great conversation. I learned a lot, and I'll definitely be watching what happens at the court next week. And thanks to everyone who joined us on YouTube or Facebook Live. If you liked this program, please make it official by liking it on social media and sharing it with your family and friends. You can find us online at edfaction.org and keep up to date with climate policies and politics by following us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Karen.